Anyway, I'm the founder and CEO of Focus Product Design. I've been in business for a little over 12 years. We're in Menlo Park. We consider ourselves a product design to market firm. And what's different about us than, I guess, a regular product design firm is we're end-to-end solutions. So we offer everything from conceptual development all the way through engineering, prototyping, manufacturing through our partners here at Wellex, as well as marketing services. Alrighty, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about product development today, and I'm also going to talk about the pitfalls, right, things to watch out for. Obviously, developing a product to bring it to market is risky, and what we want to do is minimize risks as you're developing products. Usually, when I talk to entrepreneurs, I want to understand what their goal is. Sometimes people are starting from the very beginning of the process, sometimes a little bit farther along, and usually have different end goals. Sometimes you may be fully funded, you raise around the funding, and you're looking all the way through manufacturing and picking the market. Sometimes people are just looking for a prototype it, sometimes looking for investors or to crowdfund, and sometimes people are looking to develop a prototype to license. So depending where you're at in the process, we typically work with you to take to the finish line. I look at product development as 4 phases. The first one is the conceptual phase. And if you look at the diagram here, it's good to understand the steps. Understanding the IP landscape as well as the market are important factors, and they're basically drivers into the creative development process. So you have a concept that is viable to go take to market. We look at basically 5 steps. The first is framing the problem. You need to understand what your problem is before you develop a product, as well as what the potential solutions are. You want to understand technology enablers. I'll talk more about these in a second. We want to understand the patent landscape, understanding both opportunities and threats. Last thing you want to do is develop a product that infringes on someone else's patent, and you definitely want to steer it towards an opportunity in the market. Understand the market itself. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs want to put a bunch of features in a product, maybe over-designed, too expensive. So again, we want to understand the right feature set as well as the right price. And then finally, developing a product or having a concept that you can take all the way through that's viable. So as I go through those steps, again, framing the problem, we understand why does the problem exist, right? We don't want to just make a prototype to make a prototype. Who are the potential users, and what is the core value of the solution? And basically, an industrial designer and a team will develop a strategy map. This may be made up of a full creative team, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and really understanding the strategy of a product. Next, choosing technology enablers. Whether it's an IoT product and you're understanding what type of wireless technology you're using, maybe it has a mechanism. If it's a drone, there's technology there to understand manufacturing processes, materials. All these things can be thought through before developing a viable concept. The IP area is interesting. A lot of people will go, well, I did a patent search and I came out with these patents, and then what? What does that mean? So what I like to do is when I'm looking at the patent space is get a list of all the patents that are found and put them in different types of plots. You'll see some graphs here, and it allows us to see both the threats and the opportunities, because if you're developing a product in a very heavily space with a lot of IP, you may want to steer the product one direction where there's more opportunity to develop value, because especially if you're looking for investors, it's important to develop some intellectual property for your idea. Next, market research is very important. I talk to a lot of people that say, hey, I get the best idea in the world, I know my market, I know this, I know that. But again, it's good to go out to the market. I like to do a quantitative research surveys and get feedback and make sure that, hey, we're putting the right features in this. Again, a lot of entrepreneurs tend to put everything in the kitchen sink in and then over designing things. It's always best to scale it back, get a product to market, get feedback from customers, and then make sure you're developing the right product. You can always do a version 2.0 later after getting real feedback. But again, not only features are important, but understanding the price elasticity, at what price point is going to give you the maximum profit margin. All those things I just talked about go into an end result of developing a concept. The concept can be hand sketch, digital sketch. If you're out looking for investors, a lot of times you'll be looking for something sharp. You can make a 2D rendering like we have here, or hey, if you're bootstrapping it, keep the cost down, develop a hand sketch. And these concepts are critical because this is going to be the framework for the remainder of your development if you're developing a product. It's also good to go very broad when you're ideating and come up with many different concepts. When doing so, you often have an opportunity of literally building your product roadmap, what the version 2.0, 3.0 might be. It's really exploring, again, features and appearance and things like that. Next, the second phase of the process, so I like to work, is the design phase. This typically starts off with industrial design. It's important to go from those concept sketches we just talked about to something you can touch and feel. A lot of times they'll build form studies. These can be carved out of foam or made out of clay. And it's a big difference of seeing something on paper and then be able to hold it in your hand and realize, hey, maybe it's a little bit too big. The buttons are in the wrong spot. That was really important. It's important to also understand material selection. Again, start thinking about the manufacturing processes, the materials you're going to use, finishes. They all have to be taken into account before getting too far into the design and engineering process, because making changes later is very costly. So again, putting the plan in place of what your development is going to be. Towards the end of this, the end result, usually of an industrial designer, is a three-dimensional surface file done with the CAD software. At that point, you can create renderings, you can put them up on a website if you like. But that's really going to be the basis of the engineering work to follow. Again, this is where you want to have something pretty solid. So say we're doing this remote, you want to have this form down solid in 3D of the actual shape before we start going into mechanical engineering and separating parts, because again, making changes later can be very expensive. Again, the next step would be mechanical engineering. If you have a complex product, maybe a mechanism, or if to test something out, we like to build a proof of concept, something you can test out in a lab and prove out a theory. Again, before going into design, I always want to focus on risk reduction and building a risk assessment plan and understanding what the highest risk of any development is and assessing those risks early and not doing it at the end, because again, that could be very costly. Once you've proven out your concept, again, going into 3D mechanical engineering of your product, I always like to solve things in the virtual world first, because again, prototyping can be very expensive, doing prototype after prototype, so the more we can solve virtually using either a finite element analysis, if there's a structural problem, or computational fluid dynamics, if you have a potential heat concern, again, solving those before finishing up a design, creating your engineering drawings, and then finally building prototypes, whether you're going to 3D print them or CNC parts or whatever process you decide to take. Finally, electrical engineering, again, if you're doing an IoT product, wearables, anything in that space, it's important to really lay out your design carefully early, build your block diagrams, your system design, and really thoroughly explore your components for your product, making sure components aren't going to go end of life. Again, really thinking through that early in the process so you don't have any problems down the line. Obviously designing the circuits, the schematics, layout, and then building your boards. And again, Wellex does a great job of a lot of electrical work here, building board fabs, whether it's a prototype, pilot run, as well as production. People often say, hey, I need a prototype. Well, the question is, what type of prototype do you want? There's different types of prototypes for different purposes. If you are bootstrapping a product and you're planning on raising funding and you don't have a lot of money, a lot of times an entrepreneur will develop an appearance, a prototype. To get there, we've gone through a lot of the stages we talked about in phase one, doing a little bit of the industrial design to create a surface model. At that point, we can again build something out of foam or CNC it and then paint it to look like the real thing, to get an idea of what the product looks like, what it feels like, and for a potential investor to really understand what you're looking to develop. Another is a proof of concept. Again, if you have electronics or even a complex mechanism, something mechanical or a drone or whatever it may be, it's really good to really make a proof of concept. It doesn't need something pretty, but just really prove out that it's going to work, again, before you invest a lot of money into the actual design. A lot of investors are going to be looking for that proof of concept to validate something before putting a capital into it. Next is the functional prototype. This is taking a little bit farther along through the process. We're actually finalizing the design, building parts, testing it, and proving out the functionality. especially if you're looking to crowdfund an idea, for example. You usually want to get something at a prototype stage you can actually hold and show, and to be able to take a proper video. And then the final type of prototype that I look at is a production prototype. This is a prototype we've gone through the entire process, engineered it, made production tooling, and now you're actually able to build some first samples off the line. Third phase I'd like to talk about is supply chain management. This entails a lot of different things. It may include factory sourcing of difficult to find parts, DFM, basically design for manufacturing, whether it's on the mechanical side or the electrical side, tooling, regulatory testing, quality control, and pilot builds. And again, we partnered with Wellex for the supply chain management, and they did a great job. The last phase is marketing services. A lot of times entrepreneurs are so focused on building the prototype, obviously, and raising funding, they don't start thinking about creating awareness. And it's important to do that early, and marketing can't have to be an afterthought. So whether it's, again, you're planning on crowdfunding, crowdfunding takes a lot longer than people think. You have to build a list and create enough awareness early in the process, or you're going to launch and have nobody to fund your product. But again, there's a lot of services that can be done there, anything from video to social media, setting up campaigns, etc. To talk a little bit more of that in detail, again, for social media campaigns, setting up profiles, content research, creating posts, again, that gets the word out on their social network. Building a website. So again, if you're at the very beginning of a process, even if you don't need to build a full website, it's important to at least get a landing page, especially if you are looking to raise money. This is who you are. It's a way to show people what you're doing and what you're planning on accomplishing. So at least a landing page is important. Make sure it's mobile friendly as well. And then finally, video is also very important. Again, it's not just for crowdfunding campaigns. People absorb content in different ways. Some people just like to read content. Some are more visual, like infographics. And the younger generation just wants to watch videos of everything. So again, everyone absorbs content differently. So it's important in your marketing campaign to make sure you develop different type of content for people to consume. That's the end of my presentation. If anyone's interested in learning more about the product development process, we have a table over on the side. Either me or Avery, raise your hand. We'll be available to answer any questions. We're based in Menlo Park, and we're also launching this week a workspace share. So if anyone's looking for a location to work, you also have access to engineers in the building if you're developing a product. So thank you.